Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're doing a what's next on Christian Mbilli, the undefeated super middleweight contender following a dominating first round TKO victory. God, I don't even remember the guy's name. He beat Mark Heffron. That's right. Knockout win over Mark Heffron to keep his undefeated streak going on the May 25th ESPN card. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get. So, Mbilli, we already know what's next for Mbilli. He destroyed Heffron going into it. It was almost an ink deal that as long as he won, an August showdown awaited with former four-time world title challenger, or three-time world title challenger, Sergey Derevyanchenko. And now that fight has been finalized for August for Mbilli. But as you know, I always do a what's next video. And if you have your next fight signed, I always will do, okay, well, your next fight signed, but we are going to do, what are you going to do after if you're victorious? So we're going to run through 168. If Mbilli beats Derevyanchenko, which he is the favorite going into that fight, if he beats Derevyanchenko, what will he do after that fight? Will he fight before the end of the year? Will he fight, early next year? Let's run through and see what happens. First, Canelo Alvarez, the undisputed champion. Now, he might not be undisputed for very much longer, but would Canelo consider Mbilli? Right now, I'm gonna say no, because Canelo won't even fight a guy with a bigger name in David Benavidez. I don't think he fights Mbilli. Mbilli is ranked highly in all four governing bodies. I think he's number 2 in the WBC. He's number 2 in the WBA, and then I think he's number 3 in both the IBF and the WBO. He is right there knocking on the door. And Canelo holds all the belts right now. But would he be willing to fight Mbilli? And a win over Derevyanchenko is going to be nice, but I don't think it's going to warrant a Canelo fight. I just think Canelo is going to want to take on a bigger name opponent. So I don't think Canelo is going to happen after a potential win. Then there's David Benavidez. Benavidez, a lot is riding on what he does this Saturday, June 15th, on that, on the pay-per-view card against Alexander Votsick. If he for some reason loses or fights tough, he might come down to 168. Back down to 168, especially if he's fighting Canelo or in line to fight Canelo. But a Mbilli showdown with Benavidez would be fucking big. But there's guys with bigger names that I think Benavidez would rather go after, like Jaime Munguia, guys like that to make fights against. I'm not going to completely rule out a Mbilli fight, but I just think Benavidez, especially with this being top rank for Mbilli and Benavidez with the PBC, unless Turki Al-Sheikh were to get involved and force this fight to happen, I don't see this fight happening next for Mbilli, even after a win over Derevyanchenko. Then there's former IBF champion Caleb Plant. Another PBC guy. I don't think Al Heyman would want to bring these two guys together for this fight, so I'm going to say no. Jaime Munguia, I think this would be an all-out war right here. But I think Oscar's probably going to try to line Munguia up for a bigger name opponent, like a Caleb Plant, a guy like that. But Mbilli will have some, if he beats Derevyanchenko more convincingly than Munguia did, he might have an axe to grind. And I think this is a big fight right here, but I think Munguia's people and Oscar are going to want to fight with a bigger name opponent. They're going to want Mbilli to have a bigger name or a title to be at stake. And we just don't know if that's going to be the case. And right now I have to say no. John Ryder has retired. Is this fight going to be good enough to warrant a rematch with Sergey Derevyanchenko? Hey, you never know. I never count Derevyanchenko out because the guy has just been so steady, so solid. This is literally probably the guy's lost 5 fights, and every one of those fights he's come in a heavy underdog or a sizable underdog, and in 4 of those 5 fights, actually in all 4 of the fights where a guy wasn't taking him serious, he almost won the fight. He came razor close to winning the fight. So I never count Derevyanchenko out, ever. It could be possible a rematch with Derevyanchenko. Then there's David Morrell Jr. Now, Mbilli is number 2 in the WBA. If Morrell is making his light heavyweight debut in August against Hot Rod, it depends on how he feels making that move and if he wants to come back down to 168 to fight somebody. But I think the WBA would have to mandate this fight. Now, if Canelo starts vacating belts, though, Morrell becomes the official WBA champion, and then we got another discussion because Mbilli is knocking on the door right there, and Edgar Berlanga's in his way. So, you know, they might, if Berlanga doesn't want that mandatory shot, you know, hey, Mbilli might get it. And I think Morrell and Mbilli would be huge. So a lot is riding on how both of these guys look in August. You never know. These 2 guys could be a possibility for later in the year, but I don't think it happens unless it's a mandatory fight or unless Turki Al-Sheikh brings the fight to Saudi Arabia or at least brings it under his banner. Then there's Demetrius Andrade. I don't see Boo Boo being interested in a fight with Mbilli. Not after the loss to Benavidez. I just think he would stay away from that. Then there's Edgar Berlanga. Berlanga's number 1 in the WBA. If he does not get the crack at Canelo next, then, you know, maybe these 2 guys could lock up in a final eliminator. Now, Berlanga's with DAZN and Matchroom, though. I think, what's his name, would rather pair, like, if Canelo doesn't get the fight, I think Eddie Hearn, like, if Canelo doesn't fight Berlanga next, I think Eddie Hearn would rather pair Berlanga up against a guy like Jaime Munguia instead. You know, but we got to see. You know, it could be a possibility, but right now I got to lean towards the less likely. William Skull. This is an interesting one. Skull is the number 1 ranked contender in the IBF. Now, he's either going to get a Canelo shot next, or he's going to fight Vladimir Shishkin for the vacant title. But if Shishkin isn't available or doesn't want to fight Skull, then Christian Mbilli is next. And in the IBF rankings, he's number 3. So I do think there's a possibility we could see Skull and Mbilli if Canelo gives up the IBF title. I think that is a possibility. Then there's Diego Pacheco, highly rated in the WBO. Remember, what's his name? Mbilli is ranked high in the WBO as well. Could these 2 guys lock horns for the WBO mandatory? Maybe. It could be that, you know, again, if Canelo starts giving belts up, you could see Diego Pacheco and Christian Mbilli matched up for a vacant belt. So this one definitely has some legs depending on what Canelo does. Then there's Vladimir Shishkin. As I said, he's next in line to fight for the title against William Skull, the IBF title. But if William Skull gets the crack at Canelo, so Canelo can hold on to undisputed, would Mbilli and Shishkin fight? I mean, if they did, they would be fighting for the IBF's mandatory spot next year. That is a possibility. So, you know, we'll see. Then there's Prodreg McCrory. I don't see that one. You know, Berlanga beat him and stopped him. Then there's Eric Bazinian, which I think this is a very highly possible fight because Bazinian is also from Canada and he's ranked high in 3 of the 4 governing bodies. I think he was ranked number 2 in the WBA coming into the year, and then the WBO and the WBC he was ranked pretty high. So Bazinian being there also from Canada, I think this is a very makeable fight right here that could definitely happen later in the year in a contenders bout or early in 2025. So I think this one definitely has legs. And And then you got Yoel Hernandez, was highly rated in the WBA. I mean, you never know. Maybe some kind of an eliminator. Rohan Murdoch lost earlier this year. Actually, to Mbilli, I believe. Yeah, he lost to Mbilli. So he's done. Yeah, I don't see that. And then Bektamir Melikuziev, you know, a very serious contender. I like that matchup a lot, and I think Eddie Hearn might try to throw his name in the mix to get these two guys to fight. So I like that fight a lot. So that's it. That's what I got. What do I think Mbilli should do after Derevyanchenko? Is I think an Eric Bazinian fight. He needs to, of course, express interest in the top guys. But Canelo's not likely going to be interested. But is Canelo going to start giving up belts? That's the thing. If he starts giving up belts, Mbilli needs to be right there, especially after a Derevyanchenko victory. He needs to be right there to shoot for a world title, and I think he will be. So a lot's up in the air. We'll see what happens following Mbilli's showdown with Derevyanchenko. But that's it. That's what I got. That's my what's next on undefeated super middleweight contender Christian Mbilli following his first round destruction of Mark Heffron on May 25th. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.